All right, we are recording here with David Kaiser, the head coach of the University of Texas at Tyler. And coach, we've missed you at the collegiate level. Last you were at, correct me if I'm wrong, Michigan.
That's correct.
And now this is your first head job at the collegiate level. What a strange year to come into. So if you could give me the ups and downs of what it's like coming in with these great expectations at UT Tyler, and then all of a sudden around spring break, the brakes hit.
Right. Yeah, and it was really interesting because we had just come off our first cross country and indoor track season, and really thought we were making some headway with the group of kids that we inherited when our staff got here. And we were actually out in California getting ready for a spring break trip. We'd been out there for like 3 or 4 days, getting ready to take on Point Loma Christian, and Navy was out there, and we actually were having a great team bonding experience before we get a phone call and say, that's it, you're done. And actually had to lock our kids down in a hotel for 2 days before we could actually catch a flight back.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, it's disappointing, obviously. I mean, I think in your first year, the real goal is just to try to figure out what you have. Right. And so I think we were on the right track at doing that before this stuff all hit. And I would admit that when I got here, I thought, man, I gotta build a foundation, and we have to make all these changes and stuff. And actually, we didn't really need to do that. The longer I was here, I got a chance to watch the kids work and their enthusiasm for wanting to get better was actually really good. It would have been really cool to see us get a chance to compete outdoors, but it is what it is. And our kids kind of took it in stride. They took the opportunity to really hunker down and take care of what they had to do academically. I mean, heck, our women's team finished with a 3.7 cumulative grade point average.
Oh, wow, nice.
Yeah, our men were 3.51. So, we did what we could do, and we continued to recruit. And the good thing is a lot of those kids want to come back and finish their senior years, and they want to come back because they see what we're trying to build. So, disappointing, and yet at the same time encouraging. I think we're on the right track.
So what do you have coming back? You mentioned, I need, as a first-year coach, I need to see what I have, and you were pleased with it. What do you have?
Yeah. So I think what we do have is we have a group of kids who understand where track and field fits in their life, overall perspective.
Okay.
But we also have a group of kids who they want to get better. They know that what they performed at previously is not going to be good enough in the Lone Star Conference. And so they have a good attitude. They come to practice every day, and they bust their hump. We actually have some kids that ask really good, insightful questions as to why we're doing what we're doing. And I think that's good. I invite that kind of communication. But that being said, we need to surround those kids with other kids that can challenge them, to force them to get better. It's one thing to be, I'm the best on this team. Well, that's great. But, we were 10th and 11th indoors, in the Lone Star Conference. So we don't want to surround them with kids just like them. We need to surround them with kids that are better. So.
All right. So now that the NCAA has extended the dead period for D1, D2 through the end of August, is that correct?
Yep.
How have you been able to recruit, and how are you going to continue recruiting?
Right. Yeah. So it's interesting. We don't currently have a track on campus, right? So for us, it's really a matter of me picking up the phone or logging on to Zoom or whatever those mechanisms are that we can use. And I just spend a lot of time talking and sharing my vision of what we can do here. And, being new to the conference and being a first-year scholarship program. And, and I have to remind kids all the time, right, that, they go online and they look at what our current school records are. They look at what our all-time list looks like. And I have to remind them that although, yes, they currently fit in our history, it's our history. It's not our future. It's not where we're going. So when kids reach out and say, hey, I'd be your school record holder in the pole vault. Well, that's true. We've had 2 pole vaulters in the history of our program. So just getting out there and letting people know that we're here, we're building something. And then, of course, Stuart, you have to, at the end of the day, you have to pick kids who really want to be in your kind of environment, and I will say we recruited some really good kids this year that we missed out on because they were just enamored with the world of Division I.
Right.
And I get that. I mean, I spent 25 years in Division I. I understand that. But the reality is that if they want to compete at the highest level possible, most of those kids aren't Division I kids, at least not national level kids, and when you're having a conversation with a 55-second female quarter miler and she wants to go Division I, she'll never see the NC2As unless she's a freak that hasn't been tapped yet, right?
You're right.
Yeah, so we just spent a lot of time. I mean, honestly, I got here in July of last year, hit the recruiting trail. I actually drove from here to El Paso overnight to visit with a kid.
Lord.
Yep. El Paso was a little further away than I initially thought from Google Maps. So I'm learning a lot about the state of Texas. But you know what? That's what I have to do, because people don't know that we're now Division II, and they don't know that we're, so we're just beating the pavement, and it won't take us long. I promise you, it won't take us long before we're going to be major factors in the conference. So we're getting there.
Talk to me about some of your recruits coming in.
Well, it's interesting as I went about the recruiting process this year, trying to figure out how other teams in our conference are built. And so we've been very fortunate to bring in a couple, conference level good high jumpers that in the recruiting process of them, the thing that intrigued me was how athletic they are. We've agreed that they will also be learning to pole vault because I think that's an area where we can make some headway, especially on the women's side. We're looking at a young man coming in from Zimbabwe that's jumped 24.8 and he ran 10.55.
Oh, wow.
Which there's a lot of kids in Texas, right, that run 10.55, but not on grass. This young man actually grew up training and racing on grass. And so he's ran 10.48 and 24.8 in the long jump off of grass runways and grass 100-meter straightaways. So we got some kids like that, and we signed the number 8 high school shot putter in the country out of the west side of the state. We think he's going to be able to come in and pick up the big ball, fairly quickly.
Okay.
And then on the women's side, I think we found a young lady out of Dallas that her marks don't really impress you until you find out that she threw them from a stand, and then you kind of go, "Whoa, what?" So and then we have a young lady that's transferring in. She spent her freshman year at Cal Riverside. Okay. She's actually Canadian, but she's coming in, 5'10", long arms. And I think both of the throwers are going to be real gems. But across the board, we got in some good quarter milers. They're going to be able to help us on the men's and women's side. We have a transfer hurdler coming in from. She was at Cleveland State a year ago. She's from New Jersey originally. She's coming in. In high school, she ran 61 flat in the intermediates. So we need to get her kind of back going. So I think in our recruiting path, we brought in 5 or 6 distance runners on the men's side that I think are really going to be able to challenge for those top 7 spots on our team. So this recruiting class, I think we hit a lot of areas that we needed some really big help. But we're a long ways from having the team that I want. So, but it's a really solid first year class for sure.
Excellent. Is there plans? Is there talk of an on-campus track at any time?
Yes. Actually, just this past week, I had a conversation with the university president who's pushing for one. We also had a meeting with our major fundraising arm. They think that they've got some eyes and ears out there for some people who want to make this happen. And so probably here in the next week, we're going to have another committee meeting about putting specs together. So
Oh, nice.
it just kind of, and it's something that we talked about when I took the job here. And we had a couple of meetings about it, and then it kind of fell to the wayside because of the coronavirus stuff. It's kind of hard to talk about building a track when all the departments are taking cuts, right? But you know what? UT Tyler's done a great job. Our enrollment class is up from what it's been. Our summer school student population is as high as it's ever been. So I think, again, there is a reason, right, why the University of Texas at Tyler is the fastest growing school in the UT system. So, I don't know if people know this, but our nursing school here is ridiculously good. Our business school is unbelievable. It's probably as good as any business school of any of the schools that I've ever coached at, including Michigan and whatever. But now we're partnering with UT Health to start a med school.
Oh,
so
excellent.
So there's a lot of stuff happening here on the business, finance, health side of stuff that is really helping to drive East Texas. And I think UT Tyler is going to be, kind of the heartbeat of making that all happen. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but hopefully a track's going to fit in that picture really nicely. So
a few minutes ago, you mentioned that when you came to UT Tyler, once again, that you didn't have to really invigorate the program. The kids were already pretty energized. But you mentioned that as far as recruiting, you also need to show them your vision. So when you talk to a recruit, when you come to your new athletes that are already at UT Tyler, what is your vision? What do you tell them?
Right. So, the first thing I tell them is I did not move my wife and I 19 hours from home, where we considered home, to be last in the conference. That is not an expectation of mine. It is not an expectation of our administration. I was brought here with the sole purpose of putting a track and field team together here at UT Tyler that is going to be not only challenging for Lone Star Conference championships, but it's going to make a mark nationally. And obviously the administration didn't need to tell me that because I'm not going to spend as many hours of my life coaching and talking to kids to be last, so just them understanding that we're here, to do something that's never, ever been done here in the history of UT Tyler, and the benefit of that is that everything we're doing has never been done here. We've never been Division II. We've never offered scholarships. Our school record with the exact same kids that we had a year ago, I think we broke 9 school records on the women's side indoors and 8 or 9 on the men's side.
Correct.
So we have to surround our current kids with kids that are going to be better than them. They have to help be part of the recruiting process because, and I told the kid the other day, I said, in the next 4 years, I expect to put a ring on people's fingers here.
There you go.
So, and we were able to do that in Michigan. I made the same bold comment there, and luckily it panned out. Luckily, Wisconsin had a really bad meet, and we didn't. But that's what we talk about. We talk about wanting, not just participating, but competing and contending and leaving a legacy that, 20 years from now, when people look back on UT Tyler track and field, they can say, yeah, we started that, and take some pride in knowing that when they leave here, that they'll leave a legacy that no one will ever be able to touch, because you are the first. So
that's an awesome selling point right there.
Yeah.
Build the legacy.
Yep. So
prior to UT, if research serves correctly, you've coached athletes that have set 57 school records: Michigan, East Carolina, DePaul, Purdue, Clemson, Wake Forest, Kansas, all as an assistant coach. What has all that experience brought to you to make sure that you are now the man to lead this program and build that legacy?
Right. You know what, Stuart? I think my travels I think, and the people that I've been fortunate enough to be mentored by,
Mm-hmm.
the people who have reached out their hand to kind of help a young up and comer come up. Um, you know, I've had a chance to watch how people lead. I watch how people don't lead from a head coaching perspective. You know, how to treat kids, how to interact with kids. You know, because let's face it, at the end of the day, there's very few of those kids that are going to go on and make a living in track and field. So this
True.
has to be a really positive experience for them.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, there is a, you know, when I first started, the whole concept of, you know, you have to work hard, you have to just grind every day, and I think my philosophy has kind of moved away from the concept of hard work and to something that's more of like, let's work smarter and we'll get our work done,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, man, I don't ever want to have a kid get up in the morning and go, oh my God, I have to go to track today. Like, I want this to be an experience that they want to go to, that they want to be part of, and that they want to share the experience with incoming recruits with, right? So I just think, you know, again, man, you know, I started off under Bob Timmons at Kansas,
Okay.
and Coach Timmy, I love the man to death, but he was hard. You know, some of the workouts that we tried to do there was hard. And I got to a point where I just didn't really want to run anymore. I was starting to dabble in the coaching stuff early and stuff. And then I met people like, you know, Matt Munson at East Carolina, Steve McBride, you know, coaches Gordon Thompson at DePaul, Wayne Kaufman at Clemson. I mean, they were just guys who just knew how to treat kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the relationships that those coaches built with their kids on such a personal level was something I marveled at. And I was just like, wow, man, one day I hope that I can get to a point like that. I don't know if I'm there yet, but I strive to do that. But I think you can have those types of relationships at the same time as being a firm, committed, driven person who wants to succeed, you know, and
Of course you
but and some of that is like I said earlier, you know, I came here to put rings on kids' fingers, right? I want to put trophies in the stands for the alumni to be able to look at and stuff. But again, at the end of the day, man, I want kids who are doctors and lawyers and moms and dads who are doing it the right way, and track and field helped kind of build that piece for them,
can.
you know? So I think the journey that I've had in my coaching career, you know, I've just learned a lot about the way I think that I want my philosophy to be built. You know, and I hope that, you know, kids 20 years from now will go, yeah, you know, I was fortunate enough. This guy came into my life for a small moment and made a difference. You
I
know,
like that. That's
so.
the old Amos Alonzo Stagg, the old football coach. When a reporter asked him, you know, how's your team look this year? He goes, well, ask me in 20 years.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Yeah.
So I like that. That's a good philosophy.
Yeah.
Much of your coaching success has been in the field events.
Yes.
What is your favorite field event? And what are some of your favorite memories of coaching field events?
Wow. Interesting. Because, you know, I went to college as a middle distance runner. My favorite event in track and field is the 1500.
Okay.
I love it. I hated racing it, but that's my favorite track and field event. You know what? It's interesting. For whatever reason, you know, I started coaching the pole vault, so the pole vault will always be a very fond memory. And I've been very fortunate to work with a number of kids that have jumped over 18 feet, and you know, I had a little bit of input into the former American record holder Scott Huffman. So I love the pole vault, but there's something about a kid picking up a 16-pound shot put and chunking it as far as they can with the power of the most explosive person on the track, and yet the same amount of grace as a high jumper has to have, you know? So yeah, if I went to a track meet that I was actually paying admissions for, I would get a seat close to the shot put circle. So, which is kind of interesting because I'm not a very big guy. So
What direct responsibilities event-wise will you have at Tyler, or do you have at Tyler?
So right now, the way our staff is set up, so I still coach all the field events and all the multi events. So I've got the jumps, the throws, all that stuff. If we had a decathlete, I would coach every event in the decathlon as well. Primarily because I just think it's easier for me to regulate training volumes and intensities if I'm in charge of all of it. That probably sounds selfish. I know there's a lot of teams that don't do it that way. It's just the way I feel most comfortable. So I'll still be in charge of all the throws, all the jumps, all the multis. And then this past year, I worked really closely with our sprints hurdle coach on the hurdles because two of my multi-event kids were also two of our better hurdlers. So we set up our training with the other hurdlers that whenever the heptathletes came through that event, that they hurdled with the other hurdlers. But I mean, you've known me for a long time. I keep my fingers dabbled in pretty much everything though. Like I show up at cross country practices. I'm interested in what kind of intervals they're doing. I want to know what our sprint kids are doing. So,
now prior to taking the job at UT, Tyler, most directly, you were an AD at the high school level for 8 or 9 years?
Yeah, 9 years.
What did that teach you? And then how did you find out and then, finally get offered the UT job?
Right. So, well, the one thing I learned in that position is that I didn't want to be a high school AD anymore. I commend anyone that's a high school athletic director because it's very much a thankless job. But you know what? I learned a lot just about just how to deal with people and understanding that when people come to you and they're fired up and they're upset about something, that a lot of times it's not factual based, it's emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So once you can take the emotion out of that conversation, then people will tend to be able to have rational conversations. Obviously, I mean, because I've coached so many events for so long, just dealing with time management, facility organizing, the hiring and firing of coaches, that's never fun. That was not something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed the hiring part. I didn't enjoy the letting them go part. But and then just dealing with my own budget. There were a lot of things that we did at that small high school that I had to fundraise for. So reaching out and having a connection with the community was important in that position. But again, it was a means to an end for me because I didn't want to move my daughters at that time who were finishing up middle school, high school. And I kind of figured since I'd moved them around so much anyway, that it was time for me to, put them first. And arguably should have done years before. But it was a good experience. I was able to really watch my kids participate in things that they had a passion for. My wife worked in the school district as well, so it was kind of a family affair at the school. But the whole time I was there, my main goal was to always get back into collegiate coaching. I just missed that relationship. The other thing I learned is that, and I kind of knew this before I took the AD job, was that I don't understand 13, 14, 15-year-olds, and I still don't. Their viewpoint of life at that age is way different than anything I'm used to.
Yes.
Yeah. So it was a good experience, but the whole time, especially I would say the last 3 years, especially, I started lining up, what I thought I needed to do to get back into college coaching, which is extremely difficult because college track and field is not like college football, where
Right.
you leave one job and all of a sudden there's somebody comes in and goes, well, hey, I'll pay you $140,000. You want to be my quality control guy? It's not like that. So I knew about 3 years to go in that job. I knew I wanted to get back into college coaching, and it was just trying to reconnect with people that I thought would have my back.
Mm-hmm.
And which again, you find out pretty quickly who does and who doesn't. And to be honest, when I applied for this job, it was one of probably 12 jobs that I applied for. And I was just very fortunate that someone had called UT Tyler to make a recommendation for someone else. And when they, in the course of that conversation, the gentleman that had called in had made a reference that, he too was originally from Kansas and whatever, which then the AD here said, wait, Kansas? And he made the connection between me and Kansas and this gentleman. And he asked if he knew him, if this coach knew me. And he's like, I don't understand why you're interviewing anybody else if Dave Kaiser wants that job. And literally probably within 36 hours of that conversation happening, I had a phone conversation with the athletic director here. The next day I interviewed with the committee, and 48 hours after that, I was on a plane here. So it happened fast. And I'm very fortunate that, I feel bad for the guy that the coach had called to recommend, but I was very appreciative that he stepped to the plate and was able to, say some good things about me. So.
Well, like you said, we've known each other a long time, and you've mentioned coming back or coming into Texas as a coach. Is it hot enough for you?
Oh, dude, I love this.
This isn't Michigan weather now.
No, but I will say Michigan's been in the 90s here lately. It's a different kind of heat. But you know what? In January, when it's, we went through some stretches in my last couple of years in Michigan where, we'd have 4, 5, 6 week stretches where it didn't get above minus 30.
Oh, Lord.
And yeah, exactly. Right. And so every little strained ligament I've ever had, any shoulder surgery I've ever had, just flared up like crazy. So for me, it was time for me to head somewhere it was warmer. My wife is adjusting. She's not a big fan she likes the heat, but she doesn't like it every day, but she's adjusting. And, we spent some time in Houston in my stint, and my wife was not, she told me when we left there, she says, I will never go back to that area of the country. And it was just so hot and so sticky and just,
yeah.
And then when I was interviewed for the job here, I had to keep reminding her, like, it's not Houston. It's East Texas. It's more like, Oklahoma,
True.
And when she came down to visit, because I actually came down 6 months before her, I just kept telling her, it's not like Houston. It's not like Houston. And then she came down and visited, and she was here about a week, and she's like, man, I'm so glad this is not like Houston. But yeah, she's settling in. She actually has a job here working within the university as well at a charter school. So yeah, but if you're going to build a track team, like, there's only a small group of people who want to run in, snowy kind of weather, and it's not the speed guys. So
are you still recruiting 2020 athletes, or have you moved on now to 2021?
So we are just literally, I'm waiting for one kid to navigate through the admission system for 2020. Mm-hmm. But, my assistants are on to the 2021 class. And we've earmarked some specific areas that we know we have to fill for our team to continue to get better and be competitive.
Such as?
We really need some like 400, 800 men and women. Or that 800, 1500 meter type kid, and I've kind of sent the directive that, we have to have kids that can run fast, and then we can slot them into, if you bring in a kid, just for an example, if you brought in a kid that runs 2180, that's not a bad 200, mm-hmm. But in our conference, it'll get chewed up and spit out. So I want the kid that runs 2180, but I want him so he can come in and move up.
Gotcha.
And hopefully over time we can make him a 2140 guy that can also run 47 low. So we've got to be able to take those kids and polish them up and get them to where they fit our needs. But I do know that just the versatility of those kids that can run the 4.8 or the 8.15 helps us a lot. It gives us a lot of flexibility on where we can move kids. So
over the extended break that we've had with COVID, I don't know how else to put it.
Right.
What have you done? What have you learned about yourself? Because I've spoken with a lot of kids, a lot of coaches, and all of a sudden this one young lady said, I've learned how to bake, and I've learned how
Right.
to use power tools I never thought I would. What have you learned either about yourself or what have you learned?
So I don't know if I've learned anything new, but it has been more of in my face that I'm too overly competitive and too overly possessed in trying to be successful. Because even though, I mean, if I could turn my camera around and show you my desk, like I've got stacks of recruiting stuff. I've gone back and I'm tweaking the way I coach certain stuff, how I want to set my training weeks up, um, how I want to change my weight training programs. Like, so, and I've always known this. Like, I've always known that I've been a little anal retentive about thinking about stuff like that. I wish I could tell you that I've learned how to change a transmission. I wish I could tell you that I learned, how to chip better on the golf course. Yeah, no, I wish I had something really good to tell you. I've just had it reaffirmed that I'm very anal retentive about certain things, and when the smoke all clears on this, I hope other coaches in our conference can tell you that they learned to bake and they learned to do all this other stuff, because I'm recruiting and we're trying to build a team, and when the day comes that we can step back on the track, I hope people look and go, "Whoa, what? Where did Tyler come from?" So that's
When
what
do
I hope
your
happens.
when do your kids come back to campus? How are they being brought on?
Well, so as of today,
As
the
of
plan
today.
is actually our cross country teams will have to start a 14-day self quarantine starting August 1, where they'll have to report into us every day with temperature checks and stuff like that. They have a 14-day quarantine period, and they'll arrive on campus on the 15th. They'll move in that day. They'll have their physicals that day. They'll go through a whole battery of tests to make sure that we don't have somebody that's infected. And then they go to their dorm rooms. You keep your fingers crossed that somebody in that room doesn't get infected. That's the plan now. The rest of our kids won't show up until a couple days before classes start. So probably August 22nd, 23rd, they'll move in, and then we get started the 24th.
Okay.
So, and they'll have a hybrid of, some online classes. Some classes will have to take face to face. And then we as a track staff will actually take our cross country practices. Our women will be broken up into smaller groups, the men will be broken up into smaller groups, just so that we limit how much exposure they have to each other.
Gotcha.
And most of those groups will be broken up into who they room with,
Okay.
so yeah.
Has the Lone Star Conference made a statement yet on delaying fall activities?
So they haven't. The administrative group met in the middle of this week. They were supposed to then make a proposal to the presidents before the presidents meet, which I would say is either happen over the weekend or will happen the early next week. So my best guess is that I anticipate them telling us that we're not doing fall sports. I mean, I
Oh,
just don't know
really?
how you can do it. You're having discussions about whether you can open up schools, and they're having those meetings by Zoom. Like, doesn't that kind of answer your own question? That so
One would
uh,
think. Now, you haven't heard any rumors about indoor track and field being hurt yet, have you?
I have not.
All right,
I have not.
let's
So
keep our fingers crossed that never happens.
yeah. I mean, I do agree with all the pundits and stuff out there that we need to get back to some sense of normalcy. Our kids want to train. Like it's crazy the number of phone calls I get from kids who are like, Coach, can you send me training plans? I'm like, yeah, I mean, I can send you something. What do you have access to? Well, I can run in my cul-de-sac. Well, okay. Well, how long is your cul-de-sac? And how hard is the pavement? And I mean, so I mean, I think we have kids that they want to practice. They want to get back to some sense of normalcy, which I'm 110% behind, as long as it's safe.
Right.
Because we do have kids in our program that have autoimmune deficiencies. We do have people who struggle with respiratory stuff that are on inhalers all the time.
Right.
Like, I don't want to be exposed to that stuff selfishly, so I think we need to be smart about how we do it. And at the end of the day, it's sports. Let's not make sports life and death. So I'm ready to get back. I am ready to get back. I know our kids are ready to get back and see each other.
Yes, sir. I am so ready.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I think in some cases it's going to be really good. I mean, I don't know if you follow the flow track stuff, some of those little weird things that are going on. I mean, like, goodness sakes, like, we just had two young ladies got together and broke the American record in 5,000 meters.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now granted, it's supposed to be an Olympic year, so their training has probably been geared towards running fast this time of year. But, like, that's crazy. We have some kids that are out there in these little weird little pod things that they're setting up that are running fast and jumping far and doing stuff. Yeah, we need to get back to that. But, I don't know what the right answer is. I just hope that, obviously, there were some people that were wrong when they said that when the weather heats up, it'll knock it down. Maybe if it gets cold enough, it'll knock it down. I don't know.
Bring some of that Sub-Zero from Michigan for a week or two.
Yeah, right. Nothing grows up there in that time of year.
So when we go to a track meet, indoor or outdoor in 2021, and I'm in the stands or taking pictures or at a collegiate meet, and I see UT Tyler, and the meet is over, what will we expect from a UT Tyler team?
I think you'll expect to see a team that handles themselves with class and integrity. I think you'll see a group of young men and young women who will fight you to the bitter end, whether it's their last jump or the last meter of a race. I just think you're going to find a team that just wants to compete. And if we come up on the short end of the stick, we come up on the short end of the stick, but it won't because our effort was poor or our intensity was lacking or, that we just didn't take it seriously enough. So I think there's I don't know what the dynamics of the team were before I got here. I will say that one of the things that I really do love about being here is that, there's a lot of schools out there that will sell you on the family aspect, right? Come and be part of our family. And I don't really know what that means because I've been in some schools where if that's the way their family runs, I want out, But, I sit down with a couple of especially our young ladies when I first got here, and I said, what do you think? What's the best part of being part of UT Tyler? And she goes, the family setting. And I was like, well, what does that mean? And she goes, we just have each other's back. And on multiple occasions this past year, we had some kids that would run into some issues or whatever. And I got to tell you, man, most of the time I got it secondhand because the kids took care of it. They just, not legal stuff or anything.
Right.
But if a kid's struggling in class, they like, hey, have you talked to so-and-so? They're majoring in that. I bet they can help you. And right away, they were there to help, And I've not been to many schools that have been like that, and they really do. They take a great deal of pride in being there for each other.
That's a pretty sweet inheritance right there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why I say, when early on in this conversation, I said, I thought when I first got here, my first recruiting class was going to have to be a foundational type of team. And I didn't need to recruit that. They were here. They wanted to be pushed, but it's the other stuff like that I don't have to push that or encourage it, or they do it. That's an important part of who they are as a group. The number of activities that they want to be involved in, from, Special Olympic stuff to trunk or treat stuff to youth group stuff to, there's times where I actually have to stop and go, no, we can't do all this. Like, you have to train, you have to go to class. Like, we can't do everything. the local Brookshire's grocery here, they run a they call it a fresh 5K. It's just a little short road race and stuff. And somebody reached out to me and said, "Hey, do I want to be part of it?" I'm like, "I'm not running 5K, so no." And they're like, "No, in years past, you guys have always volunteered to run in it." And I'm like, "What?" Well, come to find out, our cross country team for years has rabbited all the different groups.
Ah, okay.
So I'm like, I got a hold of our distance coach. I'm like, "Hey, fresh 5Ks coming up." "Oh yeah. I'll take care of it." And our distance kids went out and they ran that race. And people that want to run a certain time range, we set it up to where our kids led that. So, but I've been at schools where, my gosh, I mean, trying to get them to do anything that was more community based, man, it was like an act of God to get that to happen. And here it's like, they want to. If we can fit it all in, they want to do it. So, and that's a pretty sweet inheritance for sure.
I was gonna say that's a pretty special group of kids right there.
Yeah.
Of those kids you inherited, is there one or two who just not only stepped out in the community, they all did, but on the track or in a field event just surprised you, and it's like, where did that come from?
Right. Honestly, I think most of them surprised me a little bit. I would say we have a young lady here by the name of Summer Grooves.
Okay.
She was a sophomore. She ended up second in the Lone Star Conference in the pentathlon. And bless her heart, I mean, and we talked about it before I did this. But we beat her up that weekend. I mean, over a 2-day meet, she did the pentathlon. She was second.
Mm-hmm.
She was third in the 60-meter hurdles. She was eighth in the long jump. She ended up, shockingly, no-heighted in the high jump, but it was like her 9th event. And then she ran the 200 and actually was like the first or second one out of making the finals in the 200.
Oh, wow.
She broke school records this year in the pentathlon, the long jump, the hurdles. She missed the 200 record by a couple hundredths of a second. She ran on a record-breaking distance medley. And I'll be honest, I don't know if that surprised me that she got that much better. What surprised me is her durability to do it and her willingness to do it. And we talked a long time. I was like, "Look, you're going to miss our team meeting after the first night." "Well, why?" "Because you're going to have a whole nother decathlon the next day." So getting her to understand like how this is going to affect her emotionally, how it's going to affect her physically. And man, I got to tell you, at the end of the first day, so she's already done the pentathlon, she's already long jumped, and she's already ran the prelims of the hurdles.
Wow.
She stepped on the track and ran 25:03 in the 200 and broke her. I mean, she was a 26-point girl starting the year. So, so she really surprised me. We have a young lady by the name of Michaela Alfred. She played basketball for a couple of years, and then she'd come out during outdoor track and she would run. And, I mean, imagine trying to run 100-meter hurdles coming off basketball. This doesn't work very well. So we convinced her this year that she should just come out and try track for a period. And she was running like high 9s in the 60s. She ran 9:13 and was 6th in the hurdles. I was really excited. I think she was going to run 14 something outside, which got cut short. On the guys' side, we have a young guy by the name of Ty McDaniel, who's a thrower, and his work ethic is probably comparable to anybody that I've ever coached. He ended up throwing about 1.5 meters PR this year in the 35-pound weight. Ended up 5th in the conference. And probably if he would have hit a big one early, probably would have thrown 18 meters, I think. But he really stepped up, and so we just had, we don't have anybody that just sit there and go, "Oh my God, he threw the Olympic qualifier," but just kids that showed up, they brought their lunch pail every day. And I think, to me, that's what surprised me the most, is just how willing this group of kids who came to a Division III school, right?
Right.
So they came here with the idea that I get to participate in track and field while pursuing my academics. And when we decided to make the switch to Division II, they upped their game. They brought their lunch pails. They came to work every day, and they just work hard, you know. And the recruiting class that we have coming in, those kids are a big part of it, you know, because they talked about how much they've improved. I know one of the kids, I left him in a room with some parents and stuff, and I heard the kid go, "Here's what I can tell you. Our coaches will do everything they have to do to coach you to help you get better. You will be coached here." And I thought, wow, there we go. You know,
That's pretty much all the testament you need right there.
yeah, right. You know, so, and I think we've picked up some kids because of, you know, the improvements that we've had. But, you know, I think there's a culture change starting, and they're starting with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I would like to be able to say that, you know, I came in and I waved this magic wand and, you know, we're doing all these great things. No, I have the privilege of sitting at the big desk, but the kids are the ones who engineer all of it, you know, because if they're not on board, it doesn't matter what I do, you know. So it's been good.
That's true, but we can certainly hear it in your voice, the passion for making these kids better, and the passion for making what really is a sleeping giant out in East Texas, now a D2 program, so close to the Metroplex, where it's like,
Yeah,
you've got to be able to get athletes. And when your athlete says, "Hey, you're going to get coached here," this
right.
bodes for a very bright future.
Well, and I can tell you, Stu, you know, I mean, and you probably remember years ago, I had a chance to speak at the Texas Coaches Clinic.
Right.
And I made some contacts back then that I never thought, you know, I didn't know where they would ever end up.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, I am smart enough to know that when we start pulling kids from Langham Creek in Houston,
Oh, yeah.
we start getting in the door on kids from Klein Forest, Lancaster,
Mm-hmm.
DeSoto, Dallas Carter. I mean, it ain't going to take us long, right?
Exactly.
You know, and again, you know, some of the really top end kids at those schools, you know, we're it's not like we're not going to try to pull them from Texas and
Of
Texas
course.
A&M and Texas Tech, and over time I'll get my share. But, you know, but when you're pulling in kids that are from those historically strong Texas systems, and then you hook into the, you know, the Fort Worth Flyers and all the clubs that are out there,
Oh, yeah.
we're going to be okay. And I field calls from those schools frequently. So it's nice to know that those types of programs at the high school and the club level know that we're out here. They see what we're trying to put together. And when they have a kid that's kind of like, I don't know, you know what, let's pick up the phone. Let's call Coach Kaiser. And we're going to get in on those kids. And, you know, and again, that's your lifeblood anyway, right? You know, so if you have those types of schools, those types of coaches who have you on speed dial, that's good. That's good.
Well, Coach, without a doubt, like you said, we've known each other a long time. You know how to build relationships. You're doing that right now. The future looks bright for your program. We look forward to tremendous success out of Tyler. And, you know, all I can tell you is enjoy the heat, because it's probably here till October.
Yeah, and that's okay. If I have to put on a long sleeve shirt for practices in October and November, I'll suck it up. So,
Nothing wrong with that. Coach, we
yeah.
greatly appreciate your time.
I appreciate you reaching out, and I look forward to many more chats like this down the road, and expanding our conversation at the Coaches Clinic. Hopefully, I'll get a chance to get back this year.
Yes, sir. I will keep you posted. We'll be announcing all sorts of stuff in the next few days. Hopefully, we don't
That's awesome.
have to go virtual. I don't
Right.
want to do that, but
Yeah,
fortunately, we're
right.
in January and we don't have to make that decision just yet.
That's exactly right. So
Coach, we will talk with you soon. Always great to see you.
Yeah, man. I appreciate it. Be well. Keep your head down.
You as well, sir.
All right. Have a good
Thanks.
one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Yeah.